Hey guys, Voxide here. In this part of the tutorial I will cover everything there is to know about the 2D graphics part of this project, so let's get started. For starters, I will make a new composition. Go to composition, make new composition. I'll use 100 frames for this and full HD. Hit OK. And here is our composition. So let's start by dropping our background. If I go to my background folder, inside the render folder, here you will have your background, which you can drop into the new composition, like so. If I double click this layer now, you can see we have a colors layer here, which if you go to FX controls, you can see here you can change the colors. So if I check these boxes to use the custom colors, then we can go in our Strix color and click the color swatch here and just change the color to whatever you want. Let's say I will use blue, and for the BG color I will use green. Let's choose a more desaturated green, something like this. Hit OK. If we go back in our original comp, you can see this is how the background looks now. So let's drop our reporter now. Let me scale this just slightly, and let's say we will want to use our big headline extra comp. I will drop down and I'll go to render, and here in our render folder you can then click and drop your composition into the new comp. And if we scrub our timeline, here you can see how it fades over the composition, like so. I will just reposition this. I will drag this down below. You can hold shift while doing this so it doesn't fall off the edges of the screen. So Control Z that and drag it more below. So here you have it, and let's see how you can edit the text. If we go in our holders folder, here we have our holders for the text. So big 2 title is gonna be this big headline here. Double click and you can change this to whatever you want. Double click and let's say sports news, but works with any text. Make sure you don't delete the original text layer. This will delete the animation. So to edit any text, just double click and then edit the text like that. If we go back, you can see here it updates, and let's see what else we can change. Big 2 extra is gonna be this part right here. So where it says breaking news, just double click and edit the text, and we have additional subtext. Same principle here. You can let's see, for this, if you scrub your timeline and your text doesn't have any animation, then it's safe to just delete your layers and you can create any new layer for the text, and it will work. So going back, here we can see our big headline, and if we double click our big headline layer, here you can see our color options, and for hue, the first color, if we go to FX and change the master hue, like so, change the values here, you can see this is how you can easily adjust the color. And we have an extra layer for the breaking news segment. So here you have it. Let's change this to something like a blue. And you can see it updates just right in the original composition. Let's see what else we can drag in this composition. So let's see our corner slate. If I go to my render and then click and drag this, you can see this is what that is. I can reposition this in the corner of the screen, for example. And if I double click, you can see it has a hue layer, which then you can easily adjust the color. Let's use that green color. And if we want to edit the text here, all we have to do is go to our holders folder, and here we have our time and also the title. So that's pretty much how all these compositions work. and you can create endless variations of any type of composition you want. For example, we can even add let's see, our top headline here. So if I go to my render and then click and drag and then reposition, you can see this is how you can easily edit the composition. Then you can just double click, go to your hue, and then offset the hue here. So back in our original comp, you can see this is how it looks. So let's see what else. For the logo, you can also use a logo symbol in your corner of the comp if you want. You can also rescale all the comps as necessary. Let's use 50 scale here. So this is how that looks. Also, you can very easily change your color if you double click and then just go to hue, select any color, and for your logo, if you want to change your logo, you can just go in our holders, logo holder, and here you can drag and drop your new logo. Just make sure it has alpha transparency, so the background is transparent. Otherwise it will show messed up in your original comp. So let's see what else we can what else should I show you here. Something a little more unique. For example, I'll make a new composition, hit OK. Let's see our weather graphics. If I go to my weather folder and then go to render, drag my weather effects, here you can see this is what that gives us. So this is how it looks. And let's just drag the background again. And in order to start editing this weather comp, this is a little different because you can control each text and weather for each day of the week individually. So for example, if I go, let's start with the change color and what that does. If I go in my change color folder and double click edit color composition, you can see this just gives us a slate, and if I go to my hue layer, then I can readjust the coloring, and in my original composition all the slates will update. So back in our project window, let's see in our days folder. Here you have all the days of the week. So let's start with let's say you want to edit the Monday weather. You can double click this and then delete the sunny layer, and then if you go to your weather icons, you can choose whatever other weather you want. So we have a storm, for example. So this is storm with the lightning, and if I go in my original composition, you will see that the Monday weather updates to the storm one. And to edit the text, the degrees, the text, you just go to your text folder, sorry, and then if you go to your mond temp, so Monday temperature, double click, here you can change your values, double click, change to whatever you want, 26, and then in our original comp you can see it updates, and you can do the same for all the other slates, for all the other days of the week, like that. Let's see something else. Let's make a new composition, and this time I'll show you, let's see, the screens. All the screens work the same basically, so I'll just use the 3 screens. For example, if I go in my 3 screens and then render, drag and drop the 3 screens, this is what it gives us, and I'll just drop a background. And you can easily edit the text and media. So let's see, I want to edit the one in the middle. You can choose 3 screen middle media, and then I'll drag and drop my media here in this in this composition, and then I'll just press S to rescale and reposition this a bit. And then in our original comp, you can see that updates. Also, the title is 3 screen middle title, so I'll just use this to update the location, for example, and then just recenter the text. So you can see this is it updates. And to change the color, for example, you can go to your color change, and here you have one option to change the narrow frame, which is this one here, or the thick frame, which is the second type of frame, which is a little thicker. So in this case I will need to change the narrow frame. So if I double click and then go to my hue layer, you can change your color values here, and then you can see it updates in your composition. So I think that covers pretty much everything about the 2D graphics, and in the next part I will talk about the 3D graphics. Alright, so in this part I will talk about the 3D graphics. 3D graphics is basically our opener and bumper segment. So let's start with the opener one. If I go to my opener folder and then go to render and double click this file right here, this is what it gives us. So this will be our opener segment, and here let's see how you can change your media and text. So if I go in our holders folder and go to media, you can see we have scene 1, scene 2 and scene 3. So this is scene 1, then we have scene 2, which is this one right here, and then scene 3 will be the last one. So all the principles apply for all the scenes. So let's start with scene 1 and see how we can change the video displays. So if I go in my holders, media and then scene 1 folder, you can see here we have all our 5 screens. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. And let's see, if I double click my S1 media holder 1, you can delete the layer that's there, and then just drag and drop your imported media into the composition. And I will just slightly rescale this, and you can see then in your opener this is how it updates, this is how it looks. And let's do the media holder 2, and then just click and delete the placeholder, and then drop your media, rescale this, and then you can see it updating here. And that's all you have to do for the media. Just a few quick tips if you want your the imported media that you've imported and replaced in your holders. If you want it to blend a little better with the overall composition look, you can use, for example, for this image I will try to desaturate it a bit, just so it blends better with everything else. So if I select my layer and then go to effect and choose color correction tint, you can use a value like 35%, and then for effect I will add another curves adjustment, and you can crank up the contrast a little bit, and then if you go back to your opener, you can see it just blends a little better. So it might be a little important to recolor your imported media just a bit so it blends together well with the rest of the composition. So in case of our text now, you can see we have these little small patches of text flying around. You can also change these. So for scene 1, for example, we have these 2 patches of text. So S1 text 1, you can see you have control over the text here. You can just double click and easily change your fill text, and then your title, and even the shape layer that delimits both these text. And yeah, that's pretty much it for how you can replace and edit the media. Now let's talk about our color controls. So in your original in your original composition, you will have a colors layer, and let's quickly go over these what each of these color represents. So for background, it's pretty obvious, it's the background color. By changing this, you change your background. As you can see it updating here. And let's talk about the streaks. For streaks, we can use costume color. You have to enable use streaks costume. So if I enable this, then we can change the color to whatever you want. Let's try a green. Hit OK. Then we have our buildings tint, which will be the tint of the colors. So here you can change your buildings to something like You can use whatever you want, but I'll just leave it at at a slight green. You can then change your Windows color. Let's use let's see, we can use like a yellow. Let's see, our holders highlight will be the small square patches around your media, your video displays. So by changing this color, you can see what updates here. I will just use something more dramatic to emphasize the color editing. For HUD flares, this is gonna be these little lights around our HUDs. So if I change this to something like let's say, you can see it updating here. And the background HUD is gonna be like the large pieces of HUD. So for example, this HUD right here, this part right here in the frontal plane. So let's see if I change this, you can see what updates. Let's go with the red, something like that. And for the grid, this is gonna be the little small parts in between scenes where everything turns to wireframe. So for example, in this instance right here, if we change the grid, you can see what updates. So it's gonna be the wireframe around our buildings. And for the CD edge highlights, this is gonna be in our very first scene, the edges around the city which is forming. So if I change this color, you can see this updates. And highlight is gonna be every scene has like a patch of highlight. For example, here you can see it's a little orangey, and if we change this, you can see what updates. So here we have it, from orange to blue, and our shadow is gonna be this part right here. So if you change this, let's say to red, it's not very noticeable, but if you're using brighter colors, this may help a bit. And let's see, we have text flares big, so this is gonna be like the brightest flare when the text is just forming right here, this yellow, this orangey part. If we change this, you can see this is what it looks now. And the text flare small is gonna be let's see, this little flare right here around the text. So you can change it to something like let's say green, orange, sorry. And then we can change the text glow also. Let's choose something like this frame, and if we change the text glow, you barely see it updating, but yeah, that's just the text glow. So that's about it for colors. Let's see how you can edit the title. If I go in my project window and go to my opener and then holders and text and then title holder, double click here, just double click this text so the animation doesn't you don't delete the whole entire layer with the animation. So just double click this and type whatever you want, and then it will update in the original composition. Let's see, bumper is exactly the same. You can let's see, if I click my bumper render, here you have your colors, which is the same as the original opener principles. And here you can just change your text, your bumper text, to something else, and you can see it updating in your original comp. So that's about it for 3D graphics, and thanks for watching.